So I showed you the process of me wetting the canvas and then laying the background in, and the process of me laying the buildings in using the Metro card. And so the next thing that I would do is use the Sharpie markers. I have this jumbo one and then this smaller size. They come in all various sizes, so when you're going to the store, you just decide how thick you want your line or how thin you want your line, and then you can go from there. So I'm gonna go through here. My back will be turned to you, but it'll be okay. So now that I laid in that smaller line and I know that I want it thicker, I'm just trying to not get too close. You want to make sure you have to give it enough time to dry, because you don't want to crash into your wet paint with the marker, because then it won't work. Okay? I'm going to go back to my thinner marker because I can always thicken it up. Right now, where I'm not sure about the dryness, I don't want to get too close, but this is where I add in my darker lines. This is a kind of little softer technique, and then I want to add in my darker lines to pop them out. So now that I've laid that line in, it's very thin, I'm gonna go back and make sure that I make it a little bit thicker, okay? And so then go in here. Sometimes I do a little wet test with my finger and wipe the area because I wanted to go in here and kind of define that as a balcony, but it's a little wet right now, so I won't do that, but I will go back in and do that in these areas here. So now I'm just looking for opportunities to put in my windows. Sometimes the windows are the most important part because that's when all the action is going on. If you're ever riding through New York City on the bridge, or if you're on the train, and I just like to look into people's windows. Sometimes they have great curtains, sometimes they have no curtains. Sometimes there's a light on, and that kind of like gives off this vibe if it's a red light or a blue light or a green light or a white light or a yellow light. So I'm always intrigued at what's going on inside those little circles. So the windows are very important. Again, I'm not laying as many in as I would because some of this is still wet, but once it's completely dry, then I will even go on top of the silver parts and lay in a window. And then with that, after I've done that, it's about, I have some white paint here. So in the daytime, when it's black, that means no one's home. So you're gonna see these little black spots. And in the nighttime, when it's white or it's light, that means people are home and the lights are on. But sometimes people are home in the daytime and they have on lights, so I always like to add a little bit of white into those spaces to implicate those are windows with lights on, okay? So I like to step back and look at it, and painting, it will talk to you. If you take a second to step back, once you've created a layer or two or three, and you look at it, see where it's at, and then it'll talk to you and tell you what else is needed, okay? So I'm gonna look at this and see where I might have an opportunity to put those white windows. And they really would make more sense into the dark spots. So I'm gonna try this out. So if you see that where it starts to mix, that means that it's not completely dry and you don't want to mess with it. You want to move on to a place where you can get it so it's strong and it kind of like pops out. It's okay for it to blend in. Again, there are no mistakes in art, you know, and it's very personal, so it's up to the person what looks good to them or not. But I will go in over here and try here. You can also go back in once it's dry and layer on top to make that white a little bit stronger. Okay. I'm gonna put that down, rinse that off, and I'm just gonna introduce a little bit of, so these are the flowers, a little bit of a color to give it a pop. And I'll show you. I'm always using different things like the Metro card, and sometimes I use the bottom of the brush and just, you know, load that up just to get that kind of that kind of feel. So I want to say somewhere over here there's some flowers. Does anybody else besides me always see roses still nice and blooming in the wintertime? And I'm like, what is that doing here? Because New York can be brutal, but every now and then you'll see like a flower that's strong and full of color and vibrant still there. And those are the things that catch my eyes when I'm doing my cityscapes, when I'm going out for a walk and just paying attention to all these little things like flowers and trees. Okay, added some over there. I'm gonna say there's one over here somewhere. So I'm just kind of tapping using the bottom of the brush and just kind of tapping, but also letting the paint, like I'm twisting it around so that all of the paint that I loaded on the tip of that brush is getting onto the canvas. So I mentioned that I'm an abstract artist, right? So that means anything goes. It's more representational. So you don't have to literally make flowers with petals and use stems and things like that, okay? Your eye cheats it out for you sometimes when you know that it's abstract. Not too much, just a little. And so the only other thing that I would do is just wait for this to dry, because I really want to punch out, now that I know that where my line is, I want that to be very heavy. Okay, so we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back and check on it. And yeah, I'm excited for you to see the final product.